These are 5 things you should know on how banks and lenders set the fixed and variable rates. And you do not need to know anything about macroeconomics because I'm going to keep it very simple. Number 1, the premise is that banks and lenders are trying very hard every day to lend money to you. And at the end of the day, the banks look at their wallets to see how much was lent out. Now, one of 2 things happen here. Number 1, they didn't lend as much and have excess cash, and this excess cash is handed to the RBA. And the bank gets paid a cash rate of 2.35% as of this month. Option 2 happens, they overlent the money. For example, they lent money they don't have in reserve and end up borrowing from the RBA at 2.35% cash rate. This leads to point number 2, banks are always looking to build up their loan books. And sometimes the RBA does not have enough funds to quench their appetite. This leads to 2 ways that banks raise capital. Number 1, customer deposits, or for example, term deposits, or the money you put in your offset accounts. Or number 2, they borrow from the mega rich institutional funders, which we call the wholesale market. Now, obviously, if I was the bank, I'll go with option 1, because primarily I can set my term deposit rates and my savings rates. But mind you, not all banks can do this. For example, the 4 majors, they can do it. But for the 2nd tier, the 3rd tier, and 4th tier lenders, now they have a limited cash book, which means they have a limited cash reserve in terms of term deposits. Now you taper off into like smaller funders. Some of these banks don't even have term deposits. So they don't even have the option to raise their own capital to lend. Which leads me to point number 3, the wholesale market. This market is huge. Even the 4 major lenders are like little potatoes in the vastness of this money farm. And the underlying premise of the wholesale market is to lend money based on risk rating. For example, good risk rating gets a good rate, but a bad risk rating gets a bad rate. So in the wholesale market, if I am the institutional funder, I would rather lend my money to the major banks than to a smaller low doc funder. So at the end of the day, the 2 funders get the same amount of money, but at different rates. And at the end of the day, these funders come home with the money they borrow from the wholesale market, and then they put a margin on top of the rate they borrowed it at. And with this extra margin on top, that becomes your retail rates lent to you guys. And point number 4, banks don't necessarily have the money when they've approved the loan to you. The banks will usually sell you, the consumer, the loan in which you agree, and then the bank goes to the wholesale market to fund that money to you. For example, if a bank sold $300 million of a 2-year fixed rate and a $500 million of a 3-year fixed rate, it will secure these contracts at a higher margin. They will then go to the wholesale market to secure a 2 and 3 lower base rate, then secure a fixed price contract, which then becomes their cost of funds. So with the consumer contracts in hand, the bank smart traders will then go find a very lower margin rate to secure the costs. And it's a trader's primary job to maximize the bank's margins. Which leads me to point number 5. Have you ever wondered why fixed rates are higher than variable rates? Take a look at today's wholesale market cash rate. The blue line is 90 days money, the green line is 3 years money, and the orange line is 5 years money. And this is from the wholesale market of the world. As you can see, genuinely fixed rates are 2.5% to 3% higher than the short-term variable rates, which is the blue line. And this is not the bank's manipulation, it's actually what is being purchased at that rate. And that graph shows why the whole world is at the death grip by inflation. Hopefully this video gives you a bit of insight on how lenders and funders come up with the fixed and variable rates. Hope you enjoyed this simple version of lending macroeconomics. And so,